Uncle Marv here with another episode of my unhealthy podcast, my journey to find out how to live better and be happy. So welcome to the show. If you are new here for the first time, this is basically a show where I share my journey with you and I talk to friends and almost famous people about what they've done to change their lives and make themselves more healthy and enjoyable. So today I am joined by Hannah McKitrick from My Intuitive Health. Hannah, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing good. It's been an interesting day so far. You got to experience a little bit about that. So thank you for bearing with that and joining me here. So we met a couple of months ago, and it was in one of those little networking groups, and we were all sharing about what we did, and I heard your description. And then, of course, I went and quickly looked you up and saw that you were called a kitchen psychic. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So let me ask you first about that. How did you get to become known as a kitchen psychic, and what does it mean?
Yeah, so don't be scared. I'm not going to talk about dead people in your kitchen. That's not what the kitchen psychic is, kitchen psychic. But rather, I combine energy work with cooking and coaching to help people transcend denser bodies and into their lighter energy body in the kitchen. So basically, I help people shift their frequency in the kitchen, and I do that through virtual mind-body cooking programs and retreats to kind of help fast-track their journey to creating a more harmonious relationship with food and with themselves.
All right. So when you say shift the energy in the kitchen, are you talking about the fact that most of us don't like to be in the kitchen to begin with?
Yes, okay. I can promise you without a doubt, there's a magic drug that happens when someone steps into my virtual kitchen world, and they fall in love with it because that's part of the magic that happens.
Interesting. So how did this become a joy for you?
Well, I was born a foodie. Ever since I was a young kid, I could speak the language of food. I knew what ingredients would go well together. I could feel, when I make recipes, I picture them in my mind's eye, and I can feel what goes well together and what doesn't. And so that's how I create these recipes that taste really good. And to me, it's a form of creativity and something to give the overactive mind an outlet to produce, right? Because I'm someone who I can overthink. I get in my head like the best of us. And so cooking or baking or whatever it may be in the kitchen is a tangible, productive thing that I can put my brain into a task and create something that is joyful and serves others and serves myself and my body.
So if you were born a foodie, how early do you think you kind of understood what it was, and how early did you start experimenting with your food?
Well, I'll tell you, it was with pancakes, and I was no more than 5 years old, and I had the recipe memorized. I was the fourth kid, and I was the youngest, and so I kind of had to fend for myself a little bit, and so I had the pancake recipe memorized, and I remember loving making them myself because I could cook them to the exact doneness that I wanted them done. And I liked my pancakes really pale and almost gooey inside. But as a 5-year-old, that's what I liked. And I loved that I could control that and make it exactly how I wanted it. So that's one of my first memories of creating like that.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I like my stuff done.
Yeah, I like it underbaked. An underbaked cookie, I think, is delicious.
Okay. So I like a soft cookie, and I think that comes from when I was growing up. Do you remember soft batch chocolate chip cookies? That's the way I liked them. Soft and chewy, but still done.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Different strokes.
Yes. All right. So I guess we could kind of continue down that journey, but I want to get now towards the idea you created this company, My Intuitive Health. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like this isn't all about just your love of food. It seems to go a little bit more deeper than that. So can you kind of describe that for us?
It does. And honestly, it speaks to what you spoke about in your intro about health and joy, because I experienced times in my life where I was completely robbed of both of those. And that happened beginning when I was 12. I had a really, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, and I was just getting home from summer camp where I had a really severe trauma. And so I was pretty ridden with anxiety and deep sadness. And I had a body that I was kind of attacking itself from the inside out. And I really didn't know how to manage either one of those. And so I felt pretty trapped both in my mind and in my body. And so I went on a journey of kind of living that out and trying to get by. And when I was 19, the doctors were going to have to do surgery for my Crohn's disease to remove part of my colon. And it was at that point that I started working with a holistic practitioner to use food to actually heal my gut. And it was a really interesting experience because I was eating all vegetables and some whole grains. And that was basically my diet with nothing else for a couple months straight. And it was working on a physical level. I was giving my gut exactly what it needed, but on an emotional and soul level, it was not. I was very deprived of my joys because I love food. And I felt so constricted by the rigidity of it that it just really, it was too strict for me. And so I went on a journey of finding a synergy and a balance between what my mind wanted as well as what my body wanted and my soul. And so what that looked like is I was going back to college and I started adding foods back into my diet that weren't perfectly healthy, like late night pizza and alcohol and what have you. And since I had such a solid physical foundation of what healing foods were, I was really able to digest those other foods that brought me emotional joy without it rocking the boat. And so I found this way of my own intuitive health where I could really have what I wanted on all levels, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And so that's like the kind of food piece of how I got into what I do. Yeah.
So before you go on to the next part, I want to go back and just make sure, because I know listeners are going to start, trying to Google Crohn's disease, because most of us haven't really heard that. Well, let me rephrase that. We've heard of it, but we really don't know what it is unless we have it. Now, I understand it to be a disease that kind of deals with, inflammatory systems or whatever, something like that. But what is it? What does it do?
Simply put, it's inflammation of the gut. And so it affects how you digest food.
Okay.
And it can cause flare-ups where you're in the hospital in extraordinary amounts of pain. And it's a range of how it affects certain people. And it's very, very, very connected to the mind-gut connection. And it makes perfect sense that I was diagnosed right in the midst of one of the lowest mental points of my life. And so part of the healing journey for me and for anyone stepping into my space, it is about the food, but it's also about our emotions and our joy. And so the other part of what I offer people is a space to have some freaking fun, because it's so connected. Our health, it's not just about our body. It's like our mind affects our body and our body affects our mind. And so the other piece of what I do is giving people permission to bring in more joy to their lives, both in the kitchen and also on retreats. I lead culinary and wellness retreats in Italy and other places in Europe to give people a felt experience of what true joy for them is.
Right. Now, a quick question in terms of how you dealt with it, because I'm assuming that, those many years ago, that doctors did not know what they know now about certain types of diseases that attack us as an inflammatory situation. So was it hard to kind of understand what was happening and what the remedy would be? Because as far as I know, there's no cure for Crohn's, right?
I was like a yo-yo, like I was 12, so I wasn't as opinionated as I am now, and I didn't have as much autonomy over the regimen of what I was going through. My mom really took the wheel of that, and she did great. She was always trying to offer up alternatives to, homeopaths and different stuff like that to kind of complement the Western medicine. And it was a bit of a journey, and it wasn't until I was 19 that I kind of found my sweet spot, and I haven't had a flare up in now 12 years, which is pretty profound. So it has to do with obviously the food, and then like I said, kind of being rigid about my mental state. And
Okay. So that was part one for, coming to the mind intuitive health. What was part two?
Well, I kind of touched upon it with the joy.
The joy. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you grow up as a foodie, you start to have this Crohn disease, you're having these issues with gut health, which I assumed, did it affect your attitude or view of food at the time?
I was so disconnected from my body, and I was a kid, and so I was kind of into like chicken fingers and fries, to be honest.
Okay.
And it wasn't until I started going on the healing diet that I really had a deep understanding of what foods were actually healthy for me. And this is not to say my mom didn't try to feed me vegetables. She did, but it wasn't until I was 19 that I really kind of understood it and embodied it in a different way that I hadn't before. And I have a leg up being such a foodie. I learned how to make those types of healing foods taste absolutely freaking mouth-watering, delicious. And so that is my specialty when I work with people, is combining these healing foods with gourmet flavor. Like I'm teaching a class next week, and I was just making the menu, and we're doing seared charred zucchini rounds with a whipped goat cheese sauce and basil pesto with tequila lime smoky shrimp. And so it's a super healthy meal packed with vegetables and whole ingredients, but it's also packed with a ton of flavor. And so you don't feel like you're depriving yourself, and you can also have space for other things you want to eat, All
right. I was just picturing in my head, that doesn't sound like a hard recipe. It sounds like something I could actually put together.
Totally. That's why your energy would shift in my class, because you'd be like, oh my gosh, this actually isn't hard. Wait, this tastes so good.
Oh my goodness gracious. So at 19, you have this, epiphany. Now, as I understand it, you got a lot of your knowledge in college. So was it before college that you decided to go this route, or did you, hit something at age 19 that made you change paths?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So no, I did not decide before college. In college, my major was economics because I thought that was the smartest major I could do. And so I did that. And I hate economics, by the way. I don't think I've used it once. But I really wanted to be smart. So I did that. And after college, my first job was in corporate, but at a corporate catering company on their sales team. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Like I can combine my love of food with business, and this is perfect. And so I started doing that, and it took me less than a year to get bored and feel, a little bit of lackluster in that job. And it was at that point where I started researching culinary schools in Europe because, like I said, food is my passion. And so I ended up quitting that job after about 2 years and going to culinary school in southern Italy. And talk about following joy. Like it was one of the most euphoric experiences I've ever lived in my life. And it didn't teach me necessarily how to cook. I kind of already knew how to cook, and I don't even make that much pasta. But what it taught me was a way of being, and it set the bar for how good life can be. And I didn't know that type of euphoria existed until I stepped foot on that land and got to be in the energy of that joy around the kitchen and the community. And so coming home from that was quite challenging. I actually got viscerally sick because it's hard to integrate that type of euphoria back into mainstream life. And I tried, right? And started working at another job in marketing that had to do with food and Italy. And so I was like, okay, this is my next dream job. It combines Italy and food and business. But the culture there was quite toxic. And so I started getting way more into wellness when I worked there.
Okay.
I started going to yoga more, started studying nutrition more because I had a lot of free time. And so I spent it learning more of the science behind why my gut healing diet worked for me. And then I went on to study nutrition after that job at the Academy of Healing Nutrition. And basically, after all of that, I decided to combine everything I loved: healthy cooking, wellness, retreats, Italy, nutrition.
Okay. So a lot to unpack there. So let me ask the easy question first. Why Italy? I mean, there's culinary schools all over the place.
Yeah, I love adventure. I didn't want to go to somewhere near me. I wanted it to be like a big thing. I wanted to like quit my job and get my passport and go across the world. And I was between France and Italy at the time. And I ended up choosing Italy, and I went in a little blind. I honestly, I was following this poll in my intuition. I didn't have many details. I didn't know anyone, but there was a pull in my intuition, and it felt exciting, which to me, that is a barometer of what is meant to be on my path. And so it felt exciting. And now I totally resonate with the Italian food philosophy because they're all about simple ingredients prepared well. It's not fancy. It's not pretentious by any means. It's a very humble way of cooking and a humble way of presenting food that tastes good and that aligns fully with how I view food. I'm not a food snob. Like I like to make food taste good, but I also like, I like box brownies. I think they're delicious. And so it's I love the simplicity of the Italian cuisine.
Okay. All right. So now to kind of swing this back, you went over to Italy, did the culinary arts there, and you said that when you came back, it was hard to integrate that philosophy. Now, was it just simply what you were doing and learning in the culinary school, or was it that food lifestyle that was there in Italy versus what we have here in the U.S.?
It was the lifestyle and the magic. Like I would wake up every day and I had a 180-degree view of the Ionian Sea, watched the sunrise, went on a run on the beach, and then got to sit in front with my best friends that I had made over there from all over the world, a small group of us, and be entertained in the kitchen for a couple hours, talk about food, learn about food, and then have wine and talk more with these people and just enjoy life. And it was so blissful. And so I would basically wake up every day and it would be the best day of my life. And then I'd wake up the next day and do it all over again. And so it wasn't hard to integrate, pasta back into my life, but it was hard to integrate how to achieve that level of joy in a mainstream job for me.
Okay. And then now the whole idea of combining all of these things together and doing what you love. So it sounds like there is this mind, body, soul connection with your food
Totally.
philosophy.
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
That's my thing. Yeah.
All right. So what was it then that got you to the point where you said, yeah, I'm going to make this into my career?
So I had a little help from the universe. It's called COVID. And I was the job that I was in at the time was a job that was not going to last through COVID, and I kind of knew that. And I also couldn't find myself to care about it as much with such heaviness going on in the world. I felt like I needed more purpose. And so that is the push that kind of led me to take the leap and go for it. And I don't know when I would have if it weren't for that, but it was the perfect time for me to actually start to ideate and dream, okay, if I were to do a business, what would it be? And I dreamed up what my dream business would be. And then less than a year later, I was bringing a group to Italy. And it was pretty cool.
All right. So the website again is My Intuitive Health. And the emphasis is on this intuition in cooking and wellness. And most people are going to think, well, how do you intuitively cook? Mm-hmm. So I should probably ask you, when people ask you that, or people are coming to you for your coaching, how do you explain that to them?
So the intuitive part of My Intuitive Health comes from what you said, the mind, the body, and the soul. A lot of people come up against blocks with their health because they're trying to fit themselves into someone else's mold, or they're trying to be healthy just for their body. And this brings them out of their intuition because their mind and their soul are part of their being. And so if they're just solely focused on the physical, that will be forceful and pushy. Versus when you give space for the body to say what it needs and give space for your mind to say what it needs and give space for your soul to say what it needs, that's when your health becomes intuitive, because it's centered around these habits that are truly authentic for you and they light you up mentally and physically. So that's how I describe intuitive health. It's a way of eating and being healthy that feels good mentally and physically. In the kitchen, if someone wants to be more intuitive in the kitchen, it's just you learn by doing, right? Like you're not necessarily born with just knowing like how much smoked paprika to put on your tequila lime shrimp. But once you make it once and you shake some on and then you taste it and you're like, this tastes a little dull. Maybe I'm going to try to add a little more. And then you taste it. It's like, oh, this tastes really good now. And then you start to flex your muscle of, okay, now I'm starting to learn this language of food in relation to me and my preferences. And so I would say just learn by doing. And obviously it's easier if you're on the screen with me because I can kind of guide someone through as we're making a sauce and they taste it. I can usually tell, oh, does it need salt? Does it need pepper? Does it need a little honey? Is it a little acidic? Like I can kind of ask them questions to start to get them thinking in this new language that they might not have known otherwise.
All right. So a lot of what you're describing doesn't sound like a necessarily planned approach. So it's not like, you're going to adapt a Jenny Craig or a Noon or whatever the plans are that are out there. But it doesn't sound like it's a fully like holistic or functional situation either. Or is it?
It's I call it real health.
Okay.
Health, because, all those other things out there, I mean, Weight Watchers, if that works for you, great, but they can't measure your happiness. They can't measure your energetic field. And you're the only person that can do that. And you're the only person that can know what's working for you. And if someone is in restriction all day long and trying to restrict or count calories all day long, that lowers their vibration and it increases their cortisol and their stress hormones. When your cortisol is increased, your digestive system slows. And so it serves you to find a flow and synergy where you don't feel like you're depriving yourself. And so what I help people do is create the foundation of physical health, because that is an innate truth for us all, being healthy. But I give them permission and tools and structure to not have structure, right? It's a oxymoron or whatever. But I have a process that I bring people through so that they can create that magnetic vibrancy that they want from what they think a diet will give them, but with the food freedom and with the flexibility. So no, it is definitely not like a one-stop shop prescription. My intuitive health is going to look so different than yours. I can guarantee that. And that's okay. Like we're not meant to systemize what we eat, because we're 5D beings, and it's not as simple as input and output, right? Like there's so many other environmental factors, emotional factors, psychological factors that you have to take into consideration and also nurture.
All right, I'm going to make a note here to come back to you about this 5D beings, but I had another question I wanted to get to first. So if it's not necessarily this holistic or functional lifestyle, and the reason I ask that is because my previous guests, we've kind of been, going all around those different mindsets or lifestyles, and I've been trying to adapt a clean eating philosophy. And of course, most people are like, "What are you talking about?" Because it's not tied to a plan. So how much of being intuitive of what you eat and how you prepare food and stuff, does it align with a clean eating philosophy, or is it just finding what's good for you and your body and your happiness?
So it is both. So I mentioned I have this 5-step process, and the first step in it is simple nutrition. And I'm guessing that's what you mean by clean. How I define simple nutrition are vegetables and whole foods. So one-word ingredients. And this is, I go off of simple nutrition because I think there's so many different confusing theories out there that all contradict each other when it comes to diets. And so for me, I've studied Eastern medicine, I've studied Western medicine, I've lived my own journey. And what I'm distilling all of that down into are vegetables and whole foods, because those are the ones that they have the most vibrancy. They're most connected to the earth. They have the most amount of life, and they're most complementary to our gut. They are the most anti-inflammatory and will regenerate our gut microbiome every single time that we eat one of those ingredients. And that is definitely a big part of what I live and what I teach, because like I said, health is an innate truth for us all. Right. I don't teach perfectly clean eating. I don't think someone should only eat that for the rest of their life. I really value balance, but I definitely value health as well.
Okay. So the concept of eating foods that are found on the outside of the grocery store is pretty much what that sounds like? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to adjust my clean eating philosophy because I'm thinking I'm just mastering that.
And I want to underline, like, everyone's different, and
right.
Completely do what works for you.
Okay. So when it comes to, where you've, built the business to, it seems as though now you have kind of taken what your journey led you through with, living with Crohn's disease and finding a way to, I don't know, is your gut actually ever fixed?
I have been in remission for 12 years. So okay. Yeah, I'm call it fixed.
But do you have to kind of like pay attention to, signs that something might be starting to,
I would say every human being should kind of pay attention to signs of inflammation in the gut because, yeah. So yeah, to answer your question. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now you come to my intuitive health, and you do several things. And again, the website, myintuitivehealth.com. And curious because you talked about being on camera with people. So it sounds like you're doing kind of an instructional piece where you're cooking, showing people these recipes and stuff, but you have these programs that are one-on-one. So are you doing one-on-one videos with people literally in their kitchens, or is it just in your kitchen?
I don't have one-on-one programs. These are all group programs.
They're all groups. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'm in my kitchen and they're in their kitchens.
So kind of like a cooking school on the internet. No?
It's it's cooking and coaching.
Okay.
So I'm a transformational coach, and so I help hold space for people. We do one part of the embodiment work in the kitchen, which is integrating actually cooking the meals and what it's like for them to cook the simple nutrition with flavor and have it taste really good and increase their dopamine. And then also holding space for any health things, life things that people want to break through and up level within themselves.
Okay. Now, are some of these things like simple, like something that I can go home and just incorporate into my kitchen process, or is it something where you have to teach how to cook and what to pay attention to during the process?
No, it's simple for sure. And if I were to give one step for you to take home into your kitchen, I would talk about my next number 2 in my 5-step process, which is flavor. And bringing flavor into simple nutrition is like the easiest hack I could give anyone to make their health journey easy, because it makes it crave-worthy and they can't wait to eat it. It's not something that they're forcing themselves or that they're shooting themselves. They're just like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to have this dish because it's so delicious. And it raises your vibration eating in that way.
All right. So I shouldn't feel bad that when my wife tried to give me cottage cheese, even though it was flavored, that I was like, it didn't taste good to me.
No, if it doesn't taste good, don't eat it.
Okay. She'll never watch this, so don't worry about it. You've mentioned the retreats to Italy.
Yes.
So let me ask you to explain that a little bit more in the terms of what are they and what can people expect? I have to imagine it's not just a little foodie journey, right?
No, it's a little bit more. So the retreat is for someone who wants to go on adventure, they maybe have been pouring out from their cup for so many years, and they want to pour back into themselves and really take a minute to quiet all the noise and come back into their authentic essence and have some freaking fun in community and be held in a safe space. And so the retreat, I call it a culinary and wellness retreat because we do actual hands-on cooking at the Italian Culinary Institute, where I went to culinary school, which is so much fun. And then it's also a mix of transformational coaching. And so we do group coaching circles to hold intentional space for anyone who wants to create even more ease and lightness in their lives and help kind of shed anything that's not in alignment with that. And then the rest is implementing the fun. And so we go to wineries and day trips and go in the sea and have cocktail parties, go out to aperitivo dinners and farm to table, and really just give people a chance to let it be fun, let it be light, and let themselves experience joy, because so much of the self-growth industry I've found in my experience focuses so much on the shadows and what to fix. And I really like to hold space for what's going well and how can we do more of that? And let's go do that on the coast of Italy. And that in the play, in the fun is the healing.
Very interesting. So on your website, it's called the Luxury Retreat for Your Soul.
Mm-hmm.
How many times a year are you able to do this?
It depends on the year. I'm doing one in Greece in this October, and then the next one to Italy is October 2025.
Okay. All right. So, folks, when you go to the website there's a retreats tab right at the top there. You can read through it, and there's even a sample schedule, and it's packed, but it's not packed.
Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely some downtime, but also, people get there and they want to be with these amazing, incredible people who are also on this journey of the soul.
Right. Now it's also a week long, at least, right? And
6
how much?
nights.
I'm sorry.
6 nights.
7 days, 6 nights.
Yeah.
That was a movie, wasn't it? So you go there, and now is all the time really spent? Not, I wouldn't say in the kitchen, because there's a winery tour, there's a whole bunch of stuff. So how much?
Yeah, no, not all the time. No, just maybe like we'll do the kitchen like 2 to 3 hours. Maybe like 3 days, 3 of the days.
Okay. And then people have free time so they can go out and explore and do all of that. So that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, October's coming up pretty quick. So are all the spots filled for this year?
This is October 2025 for the Italy one.
Oh, October 25. Okay.
I am applications for that. I like people to go through an application process just so I can kind of vet everyone and make sure that they're an aligned fit for the community.
Okay. Sounds very nice.
Yeah.
Very interesting. All right. So normally I would have asked you, like what's the one, tip you could give listeners to kind of, help them as they're struggling, but you've kind of said a bunch of it already. One of the first things is to have fun with your food and all of that. But let me ask this. You made a comment that I wanted to get back to, and maybe this will be our tip to leave with. You mentioned that we are 5D beings. So, of course, most listeners, and the first thing they're going to say is, I thought we were 3D. And then 4D is usually, some term that comes off of a space show or movie like Star Trek or Star Wars. So you added a 5th dimension in there. So can you describe that real quick?
I don't even know if I can describe that. Okay. Frequency work isn't really meant to be explained through words.
Okay.
But just we're not just the body. And this is, if someone is a naysayer, then they don't have to listen. But me, I believe in a higher power. I believe that there's a connection beyond just our physical body. There's our soul. There's our there's our energetic body. There's our physical body. There's layers to us. And so if someone's just talking about the physical, then they're not encompassing all of the psychological, energetic, spiritual, different energies that are out there that are also connected to us, if that makes sense. And this is only if it resonates with someone listening, then try it on. And if it doesn't, you can keep playing in the 3D realm. But I prefer the 5D. This is where illogical results can happen. This is where quantum leap happens. It's kind of talking about the quantum field. And, I'm not a quantum physics prophet by any way, shape, or form, but that's my understanding.
All right. Well, I think we are more on a path to that. We are starting to understand that it's not just us in our physical bodies, that we have a relationship to the earth around us. We have, to our environment, obviously our mind. And if we're open to, other things, I can see that happening. And higher power, God, whatever that is, that all plays a part into it as well, which is why I like to look at the mind side as much as anything else. So, all right, Hannah, so I know that we've been all over the place with the questions. Is there anything specific that you want to let listeners know as they head over to your website about what to expect or what to look for?
Yeah, well, I have group cooking and coaching programs if anyone's looking to have more fun with their health and do it in a community of people where they can really feel uplifted every week. And if you're not sure, if you want to go on retreat or do one of the courses, just book a discovery call, and I'm happy to chat with anyone. And it was super, super fun chatting with you, and this is great.
All right, Hannah, thank you very much. We're gonna have to have another conversation. I want to hear about some of these recipes and see if I can do them myself because.
Oh, yeah. You can download my free 15-minute recipes on my website.
Oh, okay. Let me make a note to do that. And folks, I will have the links in the show notes. But just know that Hannah is all about healing through food. And her transformational approach is something that we should all look forward to. And it's a great way to learn to live healthy and be happy. Hannah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That'll do it, folks. We'll see you next time. And until then, holla.